Good morning, all. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Josh McCafferty again today. We're here to discuss a fair amount of Celtic news over the weekend. Pre-season's finally underway, Josh. The players are back at Lennoxtown, the majority of them anyway. It's all going to ramp up from here.
Yeah, a busy weekend actually in terms of news and what was happening at Celtic. So pre-season back fully underway, which you love to see. So looking forward to discussing it all today.
Yeah, I think the main news is that Celtic are ready to make their next summer signing, and that will be Hayato Inamura of Albirex Niigata in Japan. They play in the J League. He's played his last match for the club. He's expected to have flown over, and actually breaking this morning, his Japanese club released a statement. They said, "We would like to inform you that Hayato Inamura, a member of our club, left the team on June 29th in order to complete the necessary procedures and preparations for a transfer to an overseas club. We will notify you of Inamura's future once an official decision has been made." Obviously, no direct mention of Celtic there, but Celtic are the destination for Inamura, Josh.
Yeah, certainly looks like it, and everything would point towards that. It's always funny when you're signing players from Japanese clubs because you always get these types of announcements for them, which are quite rare and weird in this part of the world. We don't often see that. But yeah, played his last game for Niigata yesterday. But they're actually beaten 4-0 at home, which wasn't the best send off for them. They are a team kind of teetering towards the lower depths of the J League anyway, so somewhat not much of a surprise there. But yeah, he's 23 years old, a left-sided defender who can play as a centre back or a left back. So I think what's intriguing about this signing is that it's different to any of the other ones Celtic have made this summer in the sense that I think Ross Doohan will know what he's coming back to Celtic to do, be that choice goalkeeper. Kieran Tierney, we all know he's going to be that starting left back when he's fit and be balling up and down that left wing. And Benjamin Nygren, I think everyone would agree that he's coming in to be a starter and provide a goal threat to the team. Whether that's wherever he's playing, we don't know. But Hayato Inamura, we're not particularly sure whether he's coming in to start at left centre back, whether he's going to be the backup to Kieran Tierney at left back because he's very good on the ball from what I've seen. No one's really sure about this signing and what's happening, which makes it quite exciting in a way. Especially because it's kind of dipping back into the Japanese market. You obviously have the nostalgic kind of feel to that with the success Celtic had there in the past. I've said before on here that the hit ratio for that is 50%. So if Inamura can be in the half that's a hit, then that would be ideal. He's only got about 6 months to a year of professional football under his belt. He came through that university system in Japan, but yeah, as I say, it's a very intriguing signing. I don't think Celtic will be paying a lot of money for him, so it's quite low risk and potentially high reward.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks to everyone joining us live in the chat. I see all your messages already. We'll get into a few of those later. Let us know what you think of the Inamura deal, and we'll put your comments up and discuss that. Just because it now seems close, we can talk a bit about it in more depth. First of all, though, a word from our sponsor, Seneca Medical Group, the #1 hair transplantation clinic in the UK, who have clinics in Glasgow, Edinburgh and Aberdeen. They're our sponsor for the coming season, so our thanks to them as always. Now, you touched on a couple of things that I do want to get into within Inamura there. I've seen this suggestion that he might be capable of left back, but as far as I'm aware, or when I was looking into it, it seems like all his games professionally have been played as a centre back or a left centre back. I'd be surprised if Celtic are looking at that as the kind of backup for Tierney. It seems to be more that he's going to be a developing centre back almost. Now, last season, Brendan Rodgers spoke a lot actually about Celtic's hesitation on the ball in defence at times. I think Celtic were a little too slow coming out with defence for Brendan Rodgers' liking. If he's a proper ball playing defender, now the question mark with that is he may be good on the ball, but in Scotland you've got to be more than that, don't you? You've got to be physically robust and dealing with opposition attackers, and you've got to defend well. That's the bread and butter. But I think there's a view with this guy developing into some sort of ball playing defender for us. And that's why we're signing him. I'd be very surprised if he's a kind of left back choice, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think he'll be, like you say, a centre back. I mean, he'll obviously be capable of playing left back, just given his ball playing abilities, and perhaps moving into an inverted role if he wants to play there. But it probably will be the centre back, like saying Rodgers as well speaks a lot about. He likes his left-sided centre back to be left-footed. Inamura fits that well.
Yeah.
Some concerns. Obviously, I've seen a lot of Celtic centre backs in the past go to places like Kilmarnock, like Livingston. like Ross County, Dundee, get bullied on the ball and up against these big physical strikers, and they've struggled. So that'll be a big test when Inamura does come in, if he does play those types of games, how he fares in those. Because I think he's about 5'11", just touching 6 foot. I don't think that matters a lot in the modern game nowadays. In terms of his other attributes, so watching clips of him, he looks quite good in the air. So I think dealing with aerial balls and heading them away, that's one of Austin Trusty's strengths, in my opinion. So kind of matches up in that sense. But yeah, he probably will be a centre back option. Now, does this mean that Celtic aren't going to sign another centre back? Because I think we'd all agree before the window that centre back was probably a priority area, one of the priority areas to sign someone, because Trusty and Scales not convincing at times last season. So is this going to be the only one? We really don't know, because it means in terms of centre halves now at the club there are several. We've got Carter Vickers, Lagerbielka, Nawrocki, Welsh, Inamura, Trusty and Scales. Several options. So I'm intrigued to see how that situation kind of pans out between now and the end of the transfer window.
A lot of the chatter in our live chat seems to be about their usernames at the moment. I don't know if YouTube have changed a setting there where they're suddenly, people's usernames are displaying, but definitely not under our control, folks. So that is a YouTube thing. I don't know what they do, change things from time to time. Just on Inamura, so you touched on it there as well, is kind of lack of senior experience. Now, the reason for that, and I know you're well aware of this, Josh, but just for the audience as well, I'm sure some in the audience will be aware of this as well, but the way Japanese football works, it's slightly akin to like how some sports in America work in terms of like a college system, a university system. So he's come through that university system. It's actually something that Kyogo Furuhashi did as well, which is why Kyogo didn't really break through and start making waves until he was 24, 25, etc. in Japan. They go through this extensive university experience and then they come out and start playing professional football on the other side. So you could see it as a lack of professional experience, or it could also just be an indication of that he's had plenty of development time to kind of hone in on what is good about his game as well.
Yeah, Rio Hatate came to Celtic in a very similar situation, if I recall. He didn't have much senior experience, but he'd come through that university system and he came into Celtic and hit the ground running, didn't he? He was very good in his first couple of months at the club, and he's been very good since. So, yeah, obviously in terms of the senior game, I've never watched a university level game in Japan, so I'm not sure at the level. But I assume it's probably a decent level if you've got all these players who come through and eventually go on to play in the J League. I mean, you could be a similar level to some of the elite youth leagues in the world. We don't really know, but if the players are coming through and immediately going into senior football and coping pretty well and attracting interest from clubs like Celtic within a year of playing senior football, it probably shows that they're at a good level, these players. So it's good to see the club dipping back into the Japanese market for one, and then the university thing. It'll be interesting to see how the guy copes with the step up as well, because no doubt playing for a team at the lower depths of the J League who are flirting with the relegation zone, coming into a club like Celtic where the demands on you is to win every single game no matter the competition, play out from the back, that it could play to his strengths, in a sense that he'll be dominating a lot of the ball, and if his strengths are on the ball, then that could be good for the player. So let's just see how the young man copes with the step up in level, because we've seen several players come across, even from Japan, the likes of Yuki Kobayashi as a left-side centre-back. It didn't work out for him. But whereas other guys, they've taken it in their stride, Daizen Maeda, your Rio Hatate, your Kyogo Furuhashi. So let's see how Inamura copes.
You're telling me you're not watching Japanese university football, Josh? You're slacking. You're slacking if you're not into that. I'm all over that, of course. No, in all seriousness, I think. Right. So the thing that's a little bit different is Daizen Maeda was a standout in the J League before he came to Celtic. Kyogo was getting there and was a standout as well. Rio Tate was well liked by his support and had become something of an icon as well in the way that he was playing. This, Inamura doesn't quite have that status in the J League yet. It seems to be like he's like a step. He's not quite made that next step in Japan before coming to Celtic. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Celtic might be getting in on someone before they really develop into a top player. There is a possibility of that, but that is the note of caution that I would have is that he's not really fully established in the J League in a similar way that Daizen Maeda was, in the same way as Kyogo was too. So that's just not. I'm not trying to be too negative about this. Obviously, we give the guy a chance, but that is just further context that will, you know, people will be thinking about as this deal crosses the line.
Yeah, and I think he certainly falls into the project bracket when you're talking about signings, and everything about the deal kind of gives me that sense that the transfer fee, the team he's coming from, the fact he's obviously just came through the university system just about a year ago, so it does point towards it being a bit of a project. Now, I don't think he'll come in and start straight away. He's not going to be starting the first game on Flag Day. That'll be Liam Scales or Austin Trusty, I suspect. But this guy, he'll get minutes, and if he impresses, Celtic will look to develop him. Brendan Rodgers will look to develop him. And we've got to remember as well, Brendan Rodgers hasn't signed anyone directly from the J League. Obviously, he brought in Yang and Kwon, but they were from the South Korean top flight in the second.
And then that was well in place before Rodgers had even arrived, I think, wasn't it? Those two.
Yeah, definitely. So they weren't really his signings, you could say. Whereas Inamura, definitely, I think the signing of him has a bit of Paul Tisdale to it, in my opinion, in terms of the way he likes to go about his transfer business from what we've seen down south. But yeah, certainly Rodgers will be one where he's keen to look to develop Inamura as his sort of J League signing, and hopefully get the success Postecoglou did with him.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction from what I'm seeing in the chat to this signing, it's not, nobody's particularly excited about it. Now, you mentioned the dreaded P word there, Josh, project. You did say the word. Now, I don't mind a project signing. It's all about imbalance and moderation, though. We've spoken about this a little bit before. In 2023, when Brendan Rodgers first came back, it felt like there was a lot of so-called project signings in the first half of that transfer window, and it put everyone a little bit on edge, and arguably Celtic are still feeling the cost of that because a lot of them didn't work out. And I think you need it in moderation, though, don't you? You need players who will come in and start. You need players who will come in and develop over time. That is part of it. Obviously, if Celtic go out and now sign 5 or 6 more project players, that wouldn't be a good transfer strategy over the coming months. But I think in isolation, bringing in a player and thinking this guy's got something about him and we can develop him isn't a bad thing. It's not inherently bad in and of itself.
No, definitely.
And just to kind of bring the conversation on here. So, Brendan Rodgers said after the Scottish Cup final he feels that Celtic need to strengthen. We're here in the first week of pre-season. How are you feeling about that? How is everyone feeling about that? If you're watching on in the comments, etc., and the live chat, how is everyone feeling about have Celtic strengthened? Kieran Tierney is coming in. He looks like he'll be an established starter. I think the Benjamin Nygren, I think you've got to look past the fee involved in that deal, because we're signing a full Swedish international who I think looks pretty good, stand out in Danish Super League last year. Those are 2 players that are coming in, I think, to be starters at Celtic. That's a good sign, isn't it? Before we get into who might leave and all that kind of things, I think that's a pretty good start to the summer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, 100%. You could even argue that the squad is stronger than last season, because Ross Doohan taking the place of Scott Bain, okay, that's kind of like for like there. But Kieran Tierney coming in to replace Greg Taylor, I would say that's an upgrade. Obviously, Jeffrey Schlupp's dropped out. You could argue Inamura is coming in perhaps to take kind of that place. Then you've got Benjamin Nygren who's coming into the attack, and Celtic haven't lost any attackers yet. So there's certainly an argument to say that the squad is in a stronger place for this first pre-season friendly than it was for that Scottish Cup final against Aberdeen a number of weeks, just over a month ago. So that is really positive. I think the way Celtic have gone about their business so far has been really encouraging. In terms of Nygren, they obviously had to move quick, because I mentioned this, I think it was on last Friday's briefing, that they had to move quick because there was going to be competition, because this was a guy that was full Sweden international, top player in the Danish league, available for a minimal price. So they moved in. Tierney had been in the works for a long while, as we know. Ross Doohan brought in, and now we have Inamura that the club are clearly looking to get done quickly. I think the first links to him were just about a fortnight ago, and now the deal looks to be done. He's travelling to Glasgow today. So they've moved promptly, and that's without losing anyone yet. So often we've seen Celtic in these transfer windows be reactive and not proactive. I think this summer it certainly seems like the club are being proactive, and that is really positive in my opinion.
So what does Celtic still need here?
Well,
they need a backup left back. they, I think even beyond Callum Osmond, who I would suggest is another one of these perhaps project style players, given he's not played a professional game in his career. And I think that deal is still going through. I don't know what the delays it might be to do with his contract expiring. I think it expires today, so we might hear something on that tomorrow. But he has been at Lennoxtown. That one is moving forward. And then we're thinking, if Inamura is a project player, do we need another starting centre half? And if one of the wingers goes, or two of them go, or whatever, we'll need another one of them as well, even beyond Nygren, because Nygren doesn't look to be that out and out winger player. As we've spoken about, he's more of a playmaking type. He's more of a connecting player. So there's still a bit of work for Celtic to do there. I've just listed off 3 or 4 positions. Can you see Celtic doing that kind of business before the end of August?
Well, I think there's a long time to go yet. There's about 2 months to go in the window, so I think there is certainly time for them to get those deals done. If they've got 4 deals done already, within the space of about a month, I think with 2 months to go, there's still a lot of time. But like you say, you're aiming off a good couple of positions, and certainly for me, another left back has to be of top priority. I think in the midfield, everyone talks about, said it for a number of transfer windows,
Yeah.
a player who's physical, who's aggressive. I think that's still required. So bringing in someone of that ilk in the midfield could be ideal. They were looking for more creativity after the Scottish Cup final, and I think they've got that with Benjamin Nygren. Still perhaps looking for a quality winger to come in. Jota won't be back fit until January time, perhaps even after that. So even if it's a loan signing of a quality winger, that would be ideal. Striker, you've obviously only got Adam Ida in the building now as a recognised number 9. Brendan Rodgers, even after Kyogo left in January, wanted a number 9. He's still not got that yet. I don't think Callum Osmond is the player he's talking about there. So
no, he's not.
I expect another striker to come in. And then the centre half issue is one where I genuinely don't think you can bring in another central defender unless you sell or get rid of one of Mike Nawrocki, Liam Scales, or Austin Trusty, because then you'd just be stockpiling centre halves, and I think there's no sense in that. So if you're going to bring in another centre half on top of Inamura, I think you need to get rid of one of the guys who are there, and the last thing you want to do is start stockpiling guys in positions.
Yeah.
So there's still certainly 3 or 4 more deals that Celtic should be looking to do, and that's considering someone like, for example, Rio Hatate doesn't leave, or Nicholas Kuhn doesn't leave, or Desi Maeda doesn't leave. So as much as the start to the window been singing Celtic's praises so far, there is, like you say, work to be done.
Yeah, I take your point on the outgoings as well. Gustav Lagerbielke looks like he's on his way out. I would be surprised if Stephen Welsh sticks around for too long as well. That's immediately 2 defenders out the door. There's question marks over Yang, I suppose, though a lot of people liked the way Yang was coming on to a bit of a game in the second half of last season. But can he be a consistent starter for Celtic? James Forrest isn't getting any younger. There is work to be done here. There is undoubtedly work. I think my view on it is just like in the first week of pre-season, I'm comfortable with the fact that 2 starters have come in with the provision that more is also on the way. Of course, this can't be where Celtic stop this summer by any means, but it's a decent position to be with, even if you take into account Greg Taylor's exit to PAOK in Greece. Pre-season has officially started, Josh, as we've mentioned. The players had their arrival day on Friday. They'll be back at work throughout this week. There's a match against Queen's Park, believe it or not, by the end of this week. So, what have you taken anything from the first few days of pre-season? I noticed Callum McGregor saying he was up at 6:30 in the morning or something on the day that he was returning to Lennoxtown, ready to go. I think he'll be desperate to get back on the training pitch, knowing Callum McGregor.
Yeah, I think especially after the way the Scottish Cup final ended in terms of McGregor missing the penalty, it's no wonder that he's champing at the bit to get back at Lennoxtown. But yeah, it's reading the comments from McGregor, from the likes of John Kennedy. Certainly seems like Celtic weren't thrown in at the deep end, the players. I think that's the case with the modern game. There, I think they were given a light session on Friday, and then the double session started over the weekend. So I'm sure they'll be feeling the effects of that now. But it's good to see the team back. Obviously, a lot of guys, for example, Gustav Lagerbielke, who we've mentioned, training and back at the club. And yes, it's nice. It's a real marker that the season is underway, the new season is underway, and I'm sure that'll be the case come Friday night against Queen's Park as well, and the team will be primed and ready.
And we touched on this last week, but I think we're expecting the Queen's Park team to be a fair amount of youngsters. Is that fair? That seems to be the case over the last couple of seasons in these kind of early Scottish friendlies, is that youth is a pretty big focus of these, as the more senior players, they're obviously managed much more carefully. And I believe the youths have been training for longer as well. They were in maybe a week before the senior players, I think, I believe.
Yeah. So they'll be back, kind of a bit more fit and a bit more match perhaps ready. And usually, I think it was the case with the Queens Park game last year. It ended 6-4 to Celtic, funnily enough. But I think there was two different 11s in each half, so that wouldn't surprise. Or maybe there was an 11 and then 10 players changed or something like that. But I'm sure that will probably be the case again come Friday night, and you'll see guys like Jude Bonner, your Francis Turleys, perhaps Sean McCardle in the team for that Queens Park game. Not entirely sure of the youth players who will go away to Portugal with the first team, who will go to Italy for Como, the Como Cup with the first team, but there will be a lot, I assume, involved in the game on Friday.
And I guess that's what this week is about for them, is to kind of book their place on the flight almost, and kind of prove that they should belong in that kind of wider training camp squad. It's always an important time for the young players pre-season, isn't it? It's kind of overlooked a little bit, but this is like a prime chance for them to show Brendan Rodgers that they maybe have taken a step forward in their physicality or just their overall ability, but also that they're showing the personality to be involved in the squad. But Brendan Rodgers talked a lot about that last season, that these young players need to have the right personality and the right attitude into going in and mixing it with the senior players, both in training and in matches. And that's something that he noted that he liked especially about Sean McCardle.
Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity as well, in the sense that there is actually games that the young players will get to play in. So often you get the opportunity, even throughout the season, to impress the manager in training, and we always talk about training, you can always do so much in it. It's the games that really matter. And for these young players, matches against the likes of Queen's Park, you've got Cork City a week tomorrow in Ireland, they're really good opportunities for the players to actually prove that they can do it, not just on the training pitch at Lennoxtown, but in matches against fellow senior professionals. And like I say, the kind of two big things the manager looks for in a young player is their physical attributes. That's one. And then the other is like you say, their attitude in terms of the way they approach the game, if they've got a bit of personality and within the team. And Brendan Rodgers, obviously, his foundations as a coach in general are in youth, but I would argue he's not ever really developed a Celtic player fully into the first team. He didn't even give Kieran Tierney his debut, although he was instrumental in his development, but he's not really taken a young player from the academy himself and made him into a first team player. So that's a bit of a concern, but could this be the season that finally
That's an interesting point, Josh. That is, because Brendan Rodgers often likes to talk about, I've got a history with developing young players. He references players that he's worked with at Liverpool and Leicester in the past, and Reading as well, Swansea, etc. He does talk about it, but at Celtic it's not come to fruition particularly well. It's something he's mentioned a couple of times that he does want to change. How that transpires this season and beyond, we don't know. Sean Maloney's in the door. We spoke about that last week, and he's got a job in his hand, I think, on just building trust in what the pathway is and making the word pathway mean something again, and not just one of those words that people throw about. Yeah. It needs to mean something more, because it hasn't been good enough over the last few years. Just on that theme, another bit of news that was confirmed over the weekend that we broke first on the Celtic Way actually was that Matthew Anderson has completed his move to the Belgian second-tier side KV Kortrijk. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so apologies if that's a complete abomination. Matthew Anderson, he was one of the guys who looked good last summer and kind of the USA Tour, was sent off to the Admira Vakar. I believe Celtic had the option of another year on his deal, but I think the feeling was that he was keen to leave and get regular football somewhere else. And that Celtic also wanted to input some sort of, rather than let him leave for free, input some sort of sell-on clause into the deal, knowing that he's been scouted by teams in bigger leagues around Europe already, and that having a sell-on fee at least protects them from that side of things, rather than just letting him walk out the door for free. What do you make of that, Josh? I know you've looked a fair amount at Matthew Anderson over the last few years. Are you disappointed that he's left, or what's kind of your view on that situation?
I'm quite disappointed in a sense that he won't get that opportunity in pre-season to perhaps prove that he can be the backup left back to Kieran Tierney, because I think he's had a good couple of years of experience out in Austria, albeit at the second tier. Admira were pushing for the title last season, and he was very much involved in that team. So he's had those years of experience. He's captained Celtic's B team at a decent level in the Lowland League and the UEFA Youth League as well, the youth version of the Champions League. So he looks like he has developed a lot since his kind of 2 loan spells and did well. The Belgian second tier is a decent move for him. It's probably a similar level, if not higher level, to the Austrian second tier. So I've no doubts that he'll do well and he'll excel there and potentially get a big move after that. But yeah, I'm disappointed in kind of the way it's not really been handled, because you can't criticise Celtic because they probably wanted the move elsewhere and they had the option to extend. But yeah, it's a shame. That's the way it's panned out. I believe he was one of the youth players back in the day when Brendan Rodgers left for Leicester that he was kind of keen to take to Leicester with him. I think Matthew Anderson was very young at that time, so that shows you how highly he's been rated within the club for a number of years. But yeah, wishing the best of luck to him as he goes out to the Belgian second team.
I think there was a sense there was perhaps a disappointment on Matthew Anderson's side that he wasn't involved in the first team squad last year, and that there was a decision taken that he wouldn't be moving forward with the first team and then going back out to Admir Wacker. I don't think the Admir Wacker experience was bad for him. I think he enjoyed playing over there, and I think it's helped like the defensive side of his game, etc., which was one of the key things that Brendan Rodgers wanted him to kind of progress over during the spell of his loan. I'm not sure what's happened, why there's been a kind of a parting of the ways, but I mean, I do wish him well, and I mean, the fact that Celtic have got this sell-on fee now means that everyone should be wishing him well, and that he does well in Belgium, because ultimately that could pay off for Celtic down the line. Obviously, I don't think in a particularly massive way, but at least it prevents a similar situation to we've seen young players walk out at the end of their contract and Celtic don't really have anything, they just get training compensation. That's not a situation we want Celtic to be in.
Yeah, definitely. They've kind of protected themselves in a way there. I'm not sure the exact percentage of the sell-on clause, but they will be due a cut, which is good because, for example, Ben Doak, Celtic won't be getting anything if he completes a £40 million move to somewhere in the Premier League this summer, but Anderson won't go for the same amount in the future, but at least Celtic will get a chunk in there. Yeah, they're protected in a way.
And I believe, that there was a fair amount of clubs after Anderson too. I think there was a team in League One, and I think there was a couple of Austrian clubs as well who had liked what they'd seen while he was playing at Admir Wacker. I think Toulouse were mentioned from France, and Aberdeen and Hearts were also looking at Anderson as well. So he's made a conscious decision to move to Belgium and progress his development there, and we wish him well in those endeavours. Anything else? We're kind of, you mentioned John Kennedy gave an interview over the weekend. He doesn't really give many interviews, does he, Josh? But he was kind of reflecting on the last season. What were the vibes you were picking up of him?
I think it was very much that he's ready to go for the new season, and that the break has been very beneficial for Celtic, for the players, for everyone at the club, really, in terms of getting refreshed and refreshing that hunger and desire going into the new season. So I think John Kennedy and all the staff, the manager, the players, have had that break now. They've gone on their holidays, they've sunned themselves, and now they're really ready back to go and ready to go, because obviously they're coming off the back of a Scottish Cup final defeat. So I think they're desperate to get back into the groove.
And yeah, I think as we speak, the players will be going through one of those dreaded double sessions you mentioned as we're sitting here comfortable. I'm not sure what if the sun is out as Lennox. I think as you can tell from my nose, it's a little bit burnt. The sun's been shining here over the weekend, and I don't take enough care with the sun lotion, though I should be doing that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this week. Pre-season back, friendly by the end of the week. Cork City. Believe it or not, Tony Haggerty is going over to Cork, so he'll be over in Ireland for that match. So Tony will be on his travel. So we'll try and get some Tony and Ireland content on the YouTube channel for everyone. Hopefully, nothing controversial, folks, but we'll get Tony in Ireland and see what he's saying as well. So we've got lots to look forward to over the next week or so.
Yeah, certainly. Very much looking forward to the game on Friday, and then I'll be looking forward to seeing Tony, what he gets up to in Ireland for the Cork game. But then after that, some good friendlies in the works for Celtic. Obviously, they go across to Portugal. Newcastle United come to Celtic Park, and they've got the Como Cup. So pre-season shaping up to be an exciting one. Yeah,
the Como Cup, we should be going for that hallowed silverware of the Como Cup and add that to the Celtic trophy room. I do like a weird trophy or two, Josh. I don't know if you've taken the tour at Celtic Park, but there's a lot of kind of one-off strange trophies in that trophy cabinet. I don't mind a wee odd trophy here and there.
Yeah, and there could be a pre-season double if Celtic win the Adidas Trophy against Newcastle United. So you could have the Adidas Trophy and the Como Cup. What more would you want to get
Yeah, well,
yourself a new season?
well, some other clubs might claim that as a double, so
There you go.
we'll leave it at that. Listen, thanks everyone joining us live. Thanks if you're joining us in the comments below. Other stuff on the YouTube channel, we had a chat with Casper Derlind of the Nordsjælland Dreamin' podcast about Benjamin Nygren. Everything you need to know about him, his style of play, where he might fit into Celtic, etc. Good stuff from Casper, giving us an insight into his journey at Nordsjælland and kind of what we could expect from Benjamin Nygren. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can check that out on the channel. We'll have lots of stuff going up on celticway.co.uk throughout the week, and of course on the channel as well. So thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you again next time.